Hello everyone, my name is Tuli Zigalala and this is episode 5 of Good Vibes with Tuli. I'm so excited about today's episode. I'm going to talk about the topic that I enjoy thoroughly, which is books. And I've got a bunch of books that I read right now, and I'd like to just share the journey and the process that goes into each book that I read. There's a quote that I love that says, when you read a book, you can travel the world without leaving your bed. And that's true. When I turn the pages of a book, I feel like I'm traveling in a different era, I'm escaping to a different realm. But when I open my eyes, I'm still sitting on my bed. I love engaging with books, particularly paperback books, I'm very old school in that sense. I love, opening the book, touching the pages, smelling the book. And my brother and I always have this argument because my brother is tech savvy and he loves audiobooks. I can't do audiobooks, Of course, for him it's convenient because he's traveling and he's always on the road. He can't read and drive at the same time. But for me, it's like, no, if I need to read a book, let me stop. I'll make time to sit down and actually read the book. I want to touch and feel and experience tangibly what the book is about. I want to see the pictures, I want to see the fonts, I want to see the prints, I want to see the size, I want to engage with the book. So I've got 3 books here with me that I'd like to share, and I've ranked the books. I've ranked the books in terms of importance, in terms of how often I read the book and what the book means to me. The first one I've got here with me is my Amplified Bible. So the Bible is a book, I feel like it's a living book. For me, when I read the Bible, it's a way to communicate and to hear from God. This is the Amplified Bible. There are different versions of the Bible. Even though it's a spiritual book or a religious book, I feel like it's not just any other book that you can buy and put on the shelf. This is the answer to all life problems, whether it's identity or wisdom. If you want to understand what is going on in life, I definitely go here. The Bible for me is my daily bread. I read the Bible every day. It's very important to me. It prepares me. I cannot go through the day without hearing from God and just understanding what He's trying to tell me. So it's not necessarily about how many verses you read, but the fact that I make time to open the Bible and hear from God directly. He speaks to me and I can approach Him and understand who He is. I feel like He's always speaking through His word. This is where we get to see His character. This is where He reveals Himself. And if you can just take the time to read and understand what He's saying to you at your current situation about life, this is where all the answers to life are. Whether it's healing or faith or wisdom or God Himself, when you just try to have a different outlook on life. I feel like the Bible has been so important to me in terms of direction, in terms of identity, in terms of understanding why certain things happen and what is my next step. I see things more clearly with the Bible. I think my perspective has changed so much ever since I've, studied. So what you guys must also know about me is that I'm a Bible scholar. I'm doing my 2nd year at an institution called JBC, but that's a topic for another day. And I'm so glad that I took the time to invest in studying the Bible. For the first time in my life, in my 30 years, I can actually open the Bible for myself and turn to a scripture and understand for myself what God is saying to me. And if I'm looking for a specific topic or a scripture on something that I'm experiencing, I can find it. This Bible is quite interesting because it's amplified. I like amplified. There are lots of versions. There's NIV, there's King James. I love how the amplified really amplifies everything. It gives you like 3, 4, 5 options, synonyms to choose from. So for example, if they say faith, it's not just faith, it's relying, it's trusting, it's putting your confidence in. So if you don't get the first concept, then you've got multiple choice options to choose from, which is kind of cool. It's falling apart, if you can see, because I read it every day. This is my daily bread. Out of all the things, out of all the books, there's just no compromise on this. This is how I make my decisions about my day ahead, about money, about people, about anything that I need to do in the day at that time. This is my go-to book, man. So number one on my book list is the Bible. The second book that I'm reading, which is quite interesting, I can easily read between 3 or 4 books at the same time, and it depends on the mood, it depends on the setting, it depends on what I'm looking for at the time. So currently, you know, the Bible is a book that I'm always reading every day. It's a lifestyle, but I can safely say I'm reading 3 books at the same time right now. This is the second book that I'm reading. It is Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. It's quite funny because I don't own any Apple products, so I don't have an iPhone, I don't have, you know, a Mac or a laptop, you know, or an iPod. I've never had or experienced or used any of his products. I think that reading this autobiography is such great insight into the person behind the brand. Like, how did he come up with the concept or the ideas behind his products? What was the thinking, the philosophy behind that? This is my go-to book when I want inspiration. So I consider Steve, and I'm sure all of us, man, in our own different way, he is like the mega of, you know, creativity and inspiration and simplicity and quality, and color, you know, and just having the experience in terms of technology and understanding that you can dominate or diversify your products in a simple way just to solve problems in everyday, you know, life. So this book actually, when I, you know, got my hands on this book, someone was going to throw this book away. Can you believe it? You know, who throws a book away? And I was like, no, man, please give me this book. I want to read it. And it's an autobiography. I love autobiographies. I love how people grow up. I love understanding the journey of the family life, of school, of spirituality. So with this particular book, I get first-hand insights into, you know, Steve's personality. You know, I get to understand his downfalls and I get to understand his highs. What are the principles and the underlying values that helped him create such, you know, a brand, a lasting brand that lives beyond, you know, his name. Even though he's gone, his brand, you know, what he stood for and what he created lives way beyond, longer than that. And I hope that we can all take some kind of tips and build our own little empires, our little apples, you know, wherever we are. So even with my business journey, I'm very new in business. I'm learning how my products, you know, what your vision is, how your products or your services can have a need, but also make it so simple and beautiful. This is a very interesting book. You know, this is a book where I come to for inspiration. The closest thing that I remember when I read this book is my episode 1 of Building Dreams. So the concept of building, this book was actually the one that inspired me for that episode. How did Steve Jobs build his empire? You know, who was he surrounding himself with? What was happening in his life spiritually? What decisions did he make, you know, when he went through that journey? And he's human. I think what we also see in this book firsthand is that he is human. He had a lot of character flaws, but in spite of that, his name and his ideas lived way beyond him. And I hope that in learning this, it's a journey that even though you create beautiful things, you can't do those things on your own. You always need people around you. You always need teams. It's a constant, you know, journey of introspection, because you hurt people along the way and people, you know, hurt you. This for me is the first glimpse of creating anything. You know, when I read this book, every time I read this book, it's like me remembering that anything is possible. You can bend reality, you can imagine something that doesn't exist, and you can make it happen. So whenever I feel a little bit, you know, demotivated, or I feel like I've got a block in my creativity, I always try to read this book and understand that, you know, anything is possible. And it's a fantastic book. I love, look at the cover, you know, like his eyes are piercing at you, you know. Whenever I see this book, sometimes if I just put the book there on the side, I always like turn it around, because I feel like he's like looking at me. It's a bit freaky. He's looking right inside my soul. But it's fantastic. It's gripping, and I think it's a simple way of understanding his character. Very sure of himself, a bit cocky, you know, but very confident in his ideas and beliefs. And he just bent reality, he bent time. Sometimes he felt that the rules did not apply to him. And I see myself in him a lot, where in the decisions that I'm making lately in my life, I feel like you don't have to conform. You don't have to do and say what other people think. You know, you can decide for yourself what you want and create it. So thank you, Steve. The third book that I've got here is another thick one. I think I read a lot of thick books, hey? But this is an interesting one. It's called The Family Guide to the Law in South Africa. It's a very old book, guys. If I look at the first edition, it was 1982. So when I read this book, again, it's quite funny because the person that I got this from, you know, they were about to throw the book away. How do you throw a book away, guys? And it's like, bring the book here, you know. I'm sure there must be something we can learn about the law. And indeed. So this book was pre-democracy. So yeah, sometimes when I go through this book, some things are a bit upsetting. You know, the established, you know, laws of the time were not, the most proudest moments in our country or our history. But anyway, whenever I read this book, I always think of, you know, when you watch TV series or TV shows like Law and Order and How to Get Away with Murder, we always have this perception of what's going on in the courtroom, you know. For me, law has always been very intimidating. You know, it's something so technical and high up, and the Latin terms, I just cannot relate to it. So, and I feel like it's not made for me. So as a result, I switch off and I just choose to be ignorant in terms of the law that applied directly to me. So when I picked up this book, it's a family guide, you know, and that's exactly what it is. It's very simple in terms of writing. I also love the fact that it's tailor-made for our context, even though it's a bit outdated, but it's South African context, you know. So it talks about they call it the law of the machine, you know, in the country. It's also quite interesting to find that there's a law for everything, guys. There's the law for the crime, there's the law for consumerism, there's the law for rent, there's the law for injury, there's the law for divorce and children and defamation and suing and a contract and an accident. You know, you can find the law about everything, about the police. It also just gave me a wake-up call that, including myself, many people don't know their rights. People don't know their rights about how and where to go, why certain things happen. If you read a contract, if you are a victim of crime or something, people think that that's just the way it is. The law, I feel like the systems in place are so intimidating, or they drag on for so long that you just want to keep quiet. It seems so expensive to cough out that money to pay a lawyer to represent you. So let me just take the easy way out, or let me just suffer in silence. Even though some things, you know, you are on the receiving end and it's your right to actually be protected or to get that payout or to win the case. People don't know the rights, and I'm learning so much. Another thing that I'm learning is that the principles underlying the law, especially in our country, don't change. So like in this book, they talk about this concept of precedence. So they don't look at a case based on what will happen. They go to previous cases and they use already existing past cases to sort of like determine what will happen in this case. So, you know, history repeats itself. Nothing is new under the sun. And I learned that the concepts and the principles that applied in 1982 are still relevant today. So perhaps maybe they've tweaked them a bit depending on the context that we're in, technology, society, our rights have changed, but the underlying principle of the law, so crime and defamation, those things don't change. You know, divorce, it doesn't change. Sometimes maybe they incline towards maybe a certain gender, but the underlying principle will not change. So whenever I read this book, I always keep an open mind that the date must not, you know, distract me from the law itself. You know, what does the law say and how does it apply to me? So it's very, very interesting. I love reading, guys. I love the fact that I can touch and hold and open my book. I usually enjoy reading when I'm sitting outside in the sun. I love, you know, engaging with nature when I read. I feel like the four walls trap me. So reading is sort of like an escape, like I say. So when I sit outside and I can see the sun and I can see the birds, take me away, you know. I'm in another world altogether. I'd also just like to encourage you to read. So whether it's, PDF reading or e-reading or audiobooks, just get, informed about anything, any topic that is, bothering you or something that you want to know more of, especially during this time. So maybe it's a time to catch up as well. That book that you've been wanting to read that's sitting on the shelf that you need to dig up, have the time to read, read a page at a time. Take your time to underline. I like underlining and making notes on my book. I want to engage with the paper. I want to engage with the words. I want to make sure that I remember what's going on. So it's a great way to expand your vocab. It's a great way to open your imagination, because your mind, escapes to a different world, even though physically you're here, but your mind and creativity is just in a dream world. So reading is an amazing way to boost your confidence as well. You get to learn a lot of things that affect you, whether it's the past, the present, or the future. So with today's content and the podcast that I'm featuring as well, it's very interesting that you can find a podcast on anything. I found an amazing podcast today that's called The Parking Lot by a guy called Goatee Digital. And he has a conversation with a lady. Her name is Anelile Gibixeko. Okay, she is an amazing lady. I was just listening to the conversation. She's quite vocal and expressive about her sexuality and about a book as well, about her journey as a publisher or having a book that has been published. She shares her journey on the ups and downs of writing a book, and also getting burnt, unfortunately, in choosing the wrong publisher who gave her the wrong end of the stick. And those are lessons that she teaches us. If you are thinking of writing a book or publishing a book, there's a lot of red tape. Sometimes the system is not, designed for us, but she gives us amazing insights and tips into how you can find creative ways to get your book out there. So I hope that you guys can enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me today in this episode. Please subscribe, please like, please comment, please give us feedback, and enjoy.
Hope can make it happen. I turned it to a habit.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 13 of the Parking Lot podcast. Season finale is the final episode of the season, and I'm wrapping it up with a guest, an author, another environmental scientist. I'm here with Anelile Gibixeko.
Yes.
Yeah, that's that correct. And we're going to discuss. She has a book out. It's called iGoli Dreams, and we had to talk about that and publishing and getting the book published and just the journey of the book. And man, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. So I guess.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Hi everybody. My name is Anelile Gibixeko. I am from Pietermaritzburg originally. In my 9 to 5, I'm an environmental scientist, specializing in aquatic health. So I do a lot of freshwater resource management things, playing with fish, killing them and dissecting them really. And currently I'm in research. And then sort of on the side, I'm a writer, an author. Now I can call myself a published author. As much as writing has always been sort of part of my life, but sort of doing this project, publishing this book, iGoli Dreams, has sort of meant a lot to me.
So take me through the journey of getting the book published. Like, you said it was, first time writer, you wrote it in 3 months. Like, that doesn't seem like an easy thing to do. Just like,
it's not.
3 months, now it's published 2 months later. Like, what's the process?
That's the process we all thought. I was going to write this amazing book. It was going to get published. Publishers were going to fight over me. I was going to get royalties. It was going to be nice. The reality is, I wrote it. The writing is actually the easiest part, I can say. Because I'd write it after work. So in the night, into like early AMs. And then
wake up at 2 a.m.
Yeah,
some coffee.
Yeah, right. Like you're studying. And I took it seriously, and I was obsessed. If you're not obsessed over something, I feel like you don't quite finish it. Yeah, it was there. So when I finished it, now I've got this manuscript. Now I'm going to the relevant websites, I'm doing all of those things. No one was picking it up. There'd be calls by publishing houses, the big ones. I'd send through the manuscript or like chapters of it. And I mean, it was like well written, right? With my Mrs. Stubbings grade 12, like English higher grade, right? Yeah. So I thought maybe it's because like it's not written well enough, So it took me 2 years.
Okay.
I met this lady who was an independent publisher, and she said she'll take it. We'll work together. So that was last year in September. We did the things. She was going to be my publisher. She paid for like editing and book cover design and all of those things. So we went into a partnership. We launched the book in November, end of November. And it worked out well because I've got a good social media following, so I'd been tweeting through the journey, and that really helped, and Facebook and things like that. So everyone knew that I was getting published, and the launch came, and it was great. People pre-ordered, the support was there, and family and friends and everyone bought a copy, and then the hard work starts. And I have to deliver books right everywhere by myself. I have to make sure that my social media is not too personal. It has to be about the book, and I have to carry myself a certain type of way, and distribution. So if I've got deliveries in Soweto, I have to go there and deliver the book by myself.
Publishing is not linked to the distribution. If you get to
No.
go publish, doesn't mean
No, it isn't.
it gets into exclusive
Things they don't
books,
tell
it
you.
doesn't-
Things they don't tell you.
Okay.
And when you want to get into bookstores, there's something called a co-assignment agreement. So independent bookshops will want 30%, anywhere between 25 and 35%, right? Per book sold.
Okay.
And I mean, that's fine because anyway, everyone is independent. So bookstores like African Flavor Books, which has closed down weirdly, Bridge Books and things like that will take it at 30%. And then the main trade book industry with your exclusive books, bargain books, CNA and things like that, their co-assignment agreement is about 50%, right? Okay. 45 to 55% non-negotiable of the cost of the book. And how do you get there? They don't, I can't just go knock.
Okay.
It has to be through a middleman called a distributor, right? They're sort of distributor. That also needs about 25 to 35%.
Yeah.
Right?
Over and above this.
Over and above, yes. Right?
So you left at 30?
You are left with 15.
Okay.
You're left with 15%, and in this 15%, you must still make sure that you've got enough money to print more books. So it's such a hassle. It's such a rip-off also. And I mean, you'd find that you've done all of that. They need maybe 300 books. So you have to print them, and then you deliver them to all the ones that want the locations that want your book. Deliver them, but you're not responsible for where they put them in the bookshop, right? It could be in some hidden away section of exclusive books. It's not even in the forefront. And also, like at exclusive books, there's a Pan-African section. Okay. And there you're competing with Chimamanda, right? With Zegzimda and Dubusani, who's, those are people. And then there's your book also. So it's not for us. Those platforms are not for, they're not for independently published authors. And for us, what has worked is selling my book like Tupperware, basically.
Okay.
If you notice how Tupperware ladies sell, there's
door to door.
You're there at strategic pop-up places, and then I've discovered then through that there's mobile booksellers, right? And those are the people that move my books the most, more than anything else, because they literally will take 15 of my books, go out into Elokshini. They know who reads there. I don't know who reads there, right?
Oh, so you already established a network.
Yes,
of
yes.
people that had your back.
Had my back and stuff. But like fundamental mistakes that I made and I own up to is that we didn't sign a contract. We agreed on the contract. The contract was sent, but we didn't sign it. So I agreed on it like in good faith.
Yeah.
And of course, the whole thing with the masters, you should always just demand to make sure that you always copied between you and the printer. Then you can have lessons learned.
Solid advice.
Yeah.
So, on ending notes, what advice would you give to people that want to write a book or want to get into getting their books published, or just into the writing space? Like, what kind of, like, creatively, what advice do you give?
Okay.
And then in terms of, because you were going on about like the whole process, how taxing it is, like, what would you give advice to somebody coming up who wants to get their book out?
Okay, so firstly, it's make sure that you don't sleep on social media. People are sleeping on social media. People think their books are going to sell by themselves.
Yeah.
And no, nothing sells by itself. You're not going to be on TV.
Get a Twitter army.
Do it. Even if you're on that follow train thing just to get your first 10,000 followers or first 3,000 followers, do it. Facebook and all of that. It's free, guys, you know. Secondly, just write your book. Write it. If you've got a story, like I write because the voices keep me up at night. Yeah, it's a joke, but it's actually true. So, like right now, I've got a story keeping me up that I need to write down. Write it. Just write it in its purest form, and then take it from there. Don't try write while you're trying to get published as well. Okay. You know, don't try sell a publisher an idea on a book. That's not going to work.